All right, we get started in 3, 2, 1. Hello. Welcome to the 107th meeting of the Barataria-Terrebonne National Extension Program Management Conference. This is our May meeting. You know what that means, crawfish. So we have a lot of stuff to cover today, a lot of important things. We got the presentations, and so we'll get right on it. Everybody, please sign in at the front. That is what serves as a roll call. So if you have not signed in on the front, even if you're here as a guest, please make sure that you sign in so that we can count your presence that are here. The minutes have been put out from the 106th Manager Conference meeting, and I hope everybody's had a chance to review it. If anyone wants to make a motion to approve the minutes? Oh,
Chairman.
yes.
I'll approve with the correction.
Okay, there's some corrections that you made. Yes, sir.
I think that under the upcoming schedule, that conference meeting, the date of the meeting 2025. The upcoming agenda event, again, I think all those 2025.
Yeah, agreed.
With those corrections, I move approval of the.
Okay, so I think the one correction we need to make is for the save date, February 22nd, 2024 should be 2025. Correct? Correct. Okay. And then the other ones for June and July, those are still 2024. Correct. Yeah, okay. So the correction to the year for our save the date, that will be changed in the motion to accept. Megan, second. Gary LaFleur first. Megan, Dufresne first. Gary LaFleur second. All in favor? All right, thank you all.
Favor too.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. I have no remarks right now, so I'm gonna turn this over to Dr. Brian Roberts from HomeCon to take things.
Thanks for giving me no warning that you were gonna have no remarks. Welcome everybody. Thanks for being here and supporting the BTNEP the way that you all have been doing for so long. When I spoke with you back in February, my hope was that we would actually have made it through the entire director search process. I'm here to update you that we have made a lot of progress. We had a tremendous applicant pool, and the search committee has done a lot of really hard work. And we're at the point now where there's going to be several interviews next week. So by the time we get to the next meeting, hopefully, much as I like Quentin, I won't be sitting right here next to him at the August meeting. And just to remind you all about how this is such a unique and important position. There are, we all know and love the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary, and it provides a tremendous amount of unique resources. It's home to so many of us. And the National Estuary programs are really unique programs because they are really focused on trying to connect all of those that utilize and benefit from the estuary in the process of sort of overseeing a program that's designed to study and help it move forward into the future. And so the director of BTNEP is a very unique position in the fact that obviously this is a federal state partnership with EPA. LUMCON is the state partner agency. And our job is to help try to facilitate the success of BTNEP, providing it the support that it needs. We also help guide things through the state policies and procedures. And for those of you who don't really spend a lot of time, Louisiana is not exactly the most straightforward state when it comes to policies and procedures of how things get done. And that's part of our role in this. But you as the management conference, have an incredible amount of input into what it is that BTNEP does. All the activities, you guys are going to be talking later today about the projects that have been selected to be put into the proposal for this coming year. all that has to be approved by you. It makes it a really unique program in the fact that really all of us that are engaged in this estuary, these estuaries, which also makes it unique, so we got more than one involved in this, are really part of the decision-making process on what it is that the activities that this organization is going to be supporting moving forward. And so it's just a really unique situation, but in some respects, that job for that director, one of the reasons why it takes time to try to figure out who's the right person for this is you actually end up, in some ways, reporting to a whole bunch of different things. You got to follow EPA guidance. You've got to make sure that you're working with your state host agency to adhere to all the state policies, and you make sure you have the right thing there, and that's reporting to this management conference. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is set up a process that, Quentin and I spent a lot of time before we went through even putting the ad out, trying to figure out what the ad is to make sure it's very clear what this position involves, but also working with the search committee and developing a process that we think kind of highlights that. It's really important to understand when you're coming into a position like this, how you're going to interact with your staff. We have a search committee that's made up with many of the people that are in this room, for which everybody is on the management conference, and they're active participants in that. And then you have to understand how you're going to work with both the management conference and LUMCON. And so there's 3 different parts of that process where they're going to be meeting with and asking questions in 2 directions of those different groups to try to get a holistic understanding about how they fit in this process. And so we're really excited about it. We got a great cast of candidates, and hopefully you'll be getting some news in the coming weeks, hopefully sooner rather than later, about who that next director is. But I think we're in a good place for this, and we're really excited about where we are right now. A couple of things that I want to acknowledge. One, I mentioned last time, but because of scheduling, it wasn't possible to be here. Higher? Okay, sorry. Well, I don't think I've ever been told that I need to be louder. That's the first. So last meeting, I mentioned that, we have been relying on this tremendous staff. BTNEP is very fortunate of all the wonderful people that are part of their staff, and they all know how to keep things moving forward. We had hoped this would be a little bit shorter transition than it is, but they've enabled it to sort of kind of keep things moving throughout this process. And I had asked my Deputy Director, Chief Operating Officer, Donald Lottinger, has been filling in as an interim director in terms of trying to make sure that all the policies are moving forward, all the communication with EPA are working, that we're moving things along. And so I'm grateful to both Donna and the BTNEP staff for sort of weathering this few-month period as we work to identify the next directors. I also want to just briefly talk about the fact that last week was the annual NEP meeting at EPA headquarters. And since we're in this period of transition, EPA asked if I would attend that meeting, which I gladly did. And it was really, I think, a really enlightening experience. And I have lots of notes to share with the staff. I think the enthusiasm for BTNEP within the national program is really, really high. People recognize the importance that this NEP plays within the system. This should be, and I think it traditionally has been, one of the shining lights within the entire system. It's very hard to find another NEP that has as much engagement by this diverse set of stakeholders and users and collaborators within the management conference. It's also an area that has a tremendous amount of resources that are paying attention to and trying to help with restoration and management. And so that really makes it a unique case that can be highlighted within that national system. And that kind of came through time and time again. I think the other thing that was really important for me to be there was that it also put an emphasis on how important LumCon and the state of Louisiana feels about BTNEP and how important this partnership is to us. And so it gave it a lot of opportunity to meet with folks from EPA that I had not been able to meet with before, or I've only been meeting with over the phone or Zoom. You know, we all know that in person goes a lot further than doing those things electronically. It's like, one, I can tell how tall somebody is, because, you know, in Zoom, that's difficult. So it was a really positive meeting. I think there was a lot of great lessons learned. It's also really interesting, and we're going to hear about some exciting projects that are being proposed for how to use some of the BIL funds. The different NEPs are approaching this really, really different. And so I think, you know, we've done a lot of great things. We have a few more years of this. I think that there's a lot of potential lessons learned from what some others are doing about how we may even want to think about the call that goes out next year about what we might want to do. The other thing that I think was really encouraging is that we broke into a lot of different working groups, discussions, and there's a lot of interest within our EPA Region 6 actually only has 3 NEPs. So there's 2 in Texas and ours here. And about trying to cross-fertilization of ideas and working together. But then if you go across the Gulf Coast, in general, across the Gulf Coast, we're facing a lot of similar issues that may be a little bit more unique than some of the higher latitude sites. And so there's a lot of people reached out to try to talk and start having communication and trying to we'll get the staff involved and engaged with that. So I think overall it was a really positive experience. And I think it was just really so encouraging to hear how much affection they have at EPA and the other NEPs. And so a lot of that credit goes to, you know, to the people sitting down there next to each other, Carrie and Susan, for the leadership that has been in the past and sort of putting this place on the map. So I just want to end on that positive note. I'm really excited about where things are going, and thank you all for your continued support you give to BTNEP.
Thank you, Brian. So a great report and a lot of nice words. And I'm glad to hear that the other SRA programs looks at ours as a leader and as a shining star within the whole national SRA program. That's very encouraging. Okay. Any comments? All right. Up next is Dr. Gary LaFleur to give us a foundation report.
Hey everyone, I'm Gary LaFleur, the president of the Barataria-Terrebonne Estuary Foundation, and we met this week. Just want to let you know that all the accounts are in order, all that's working out. What does the Estuary Foundation do? You know, oftentimes we receive grants that are going to help support projects at BTNEP. We receive grants, we do the accounting, and we allow for those monies to be dispersed. So that's the thing that the Estuary Foundation does. We usually take a back seat to what's really going on at BTNEP. But there's one time of the year where we don't take a back seat. That's what this little flyer is all about. I made this 1970s style flyer. This is the way we used to do it in the 70s and the 80s. This photocopier, you can find this flyer in the white booth that's sitting on the desk over there. And that's going to remind you that we've set the date for the White Booth Gala. That's going to be at SPARS again. That's going to be Tuesday, September 24th. So that puts it within the week that we call Estuary Week. And it's going to be similar as in the past. We did not go up on our ticket prices. It's going to be a nice price for everyone to be there. It's just $70 for one ticket, $130 for a pair. We'll probably be able to meet the new director at that, so you can think about that. We're probably going to have Susan's card game. We gather around and make fun of Terry St. Peg at this. So there's plenty of things to look forward to, and that's it from the Estuary Foundation. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. LaFleur. That's one of the favorite events for the whole year, so I hope to see a lot of you guys out there. Okay, now this is our annual approval of our work plans, and we're going to split this up into 2 different sections. The first one is going to be the traditional section 320 funding. We'll hear from different staff members about the project that they think should be supported. And then we'll talk about that, we'll approve it, and then we'll go down and we'll do the BIL funding for proposed projects, and then we'll go to the construction out first. So first up, I'll let call Delana, come on. And to go over our biological resources projects.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
So, Donna asked me, during our last staff meeting, if I could just kind of introduce and bring everyone up to date where we are, just in case some of the folks, don't really understand how we got to this point. So, just to briefly bring everyone up to kind of where we are. During January and February, we had sent out a solicitation for proposals, and we got project proposals as part of that solicitation to the program. And then those projects were organized and sorted into various action plan teams. Within BTNEP, there's 4 major action plan team divisions. And so, for instance, like water quality, invasive species, biological resources, and then I forget my last one. Community engagement, thank you. And so those were our 4. Community engagement was the last one. The 4 different action plan teams that we had our action plan teams organized into. And so then we took the projects that fit into each of those categories, and then we went to those action plan teams and asked them to rank those projects, okay? And so then after those that ranking process, we took those projects back to the staff, and then we went through a process where we look at our total available resources, and then we decide on, we have to decide on how much money we're going to be using for operational services, all that kind of stuff, and then what's left over, what we have available for projects. And out of that money, we turned that over into what is, basically the top projects that came out of the ranking process. Okay. And then, so then Donna and Nicole took that away, and then they worked on it with the staff to come up with the work plans that you see here today. So, I think I had mentioned in previous management conference meeting, this is a multi-step process. We start with the solicitation, then the project proposals going to the action plan teams. Then it comes to the management conference for approval. And then finally, it's going to go to EPA once the management conference approves. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to where we are today. And then we're going to also have each action plan team member go through the list of projects that they had assembled within each of the work plans that we have in front of you today. So you should be able to follow along. I think we're going to be going through the 320 work plan first. So in front of you, you should have the 320 work plan on top. And so we're going to be starting with that. And the lands projects for biological resources should come up first. Okay.
The first project we're gonna talk about is engaging primary and secondary students in citizen science through Coal Martin Conservation. This is a project that was submitted by the Coal Martin Conservation Initiative. The request is for $19,961. This project is essentially going to purchase 3 Purple Mountain board racks, along with 3 Bluebird housing units, and install them at. They will be monitoring and teaching the personnel at the school, the teachers, and providing them with information and programs and materials for the students to learn how to monitor and manage and even basically engage into a citizen science component through a project something called Project Martin Watch, which is a Purple Martin online database, and so that is that project. The next project is the survey for freshwater mussels in Plaquemine Parish. This is the organization, this was brought by the University of New Orleans, Martin C. O'Connell, but also includes Nephron Research Laboratory, Pontchartrain Institute for Environmental Sciences, those 2, the 3 organizations. This estimated total budget is $49,702. This project is essentially the fair sheet. This proposal is we don't know what freshwater mussels occur. And so his proposal is to identify what is there and to identify essentially if there are any endangered or threatened species there, get any protection necessary for that area if it is incurred, and also to, if there are mussels, to identify, is it, is it sick, or is it, he wants to identify what they are they there for, he wants to determine why they're there. Are they there because they're supposed to be there, or are they there because they're the same issue or that? So that's his proposal. And let's see. My one is the vertical oyster gardening with recycled oyster shells, and this is Coalition of Restored Coastal Louisiana. This is for $25,000. This is a essentially citizen science project too. They're going to provide some oyster shells to citizens and have them provide them to waterfront property owners and have them suspend them on their docks and overheads to recruit new oyster growth, which will provide extreme habitat and engage the public in farming. And that is these projects. Does anyone have any questions?
Or the lady just, I'm interested on the freshwater mussel survey. Are they gonna be doing that with a traditional sampling, or are they gonna use like EPA analysis?
They, there's no.
Any other questions?
I got one for that same project. It just says parts of Plaquemine Parish. Do you know specifically where they're gonna be
So
doing this
the question
research?
is, he says parts of Plaquemine Parish, but he's asking specific locations of Plaquemine.
I guess even more specific than that, is this related to the proposed diversion?
Is this related to the proposed diversion as well?
They were interested in I think he was interested in that issue for sure. He did have a specific site in mind. I would have to look at the proposal, and I could pull it up and show it to you. for sure. He wanted to be here and, he wasn't able to be here.
But I can speak about my experience with freshwater mussels. Okay, if you look at their distribution maps, this area is a blank. We have almost no records of freshwater mussels in this area, even though we know they're there. We see a bunch of them. But when you look at the scientific literature, we don't know. So I'm not sure where it is over in Plaquemines. So any kind of information we get about this, because as a group, freshwater mussels is one of the groups of animals that are most in decline. They're the ones that are most impacted a lot of times by different environmental things. So that's probably where this is coming from, is that we just don't know what's out there because no one's ever studied it before. That's probably what's driving this.
So if you find, this project finds a rare and endangered freshwater mussel, could that potentially hinder any coastal restoration, dredging, diversion projects?
I think that it would, my understanding is this thing was, it would be like where U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would be called in to put in place anything that would, they would be called in, essentially, is what he explained to us. If any were found, they would be called in to prevent, and they really do, just working with them on restoration projects like Common Island Headland with Piping Clover, they really do work to, as best they can, to keep projects going. They are very good at, working with, PPRA to keep, coastal restoration projects going. So I think that they are very proactive in terms of, protecting species and, keeping restoration, ongoing. I can't answer for them, but that's, from experience, that's what I think.
Any other questions? Well, once, twice. All right, thank you, Dawn. And then up next, I think, is Emily Road to talk to us about the community engagement proposal that are up.
Hello, I'm Emily Bro. I'm the Community Engagement Action Plan Team Leader. Okay, so our first project is the nutrient excluder device removal at the John P. National Historic Park. This is by the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, CRCL. Their funding request is $36,224. So they are wanting to remove up to 7,000 plastic nutrient excluder devices, also known as tree protectors, from a successful restoration tree planting that they did about 15 years ago. They will mobilize volunteer groups over multiple work days to remove the old tree protectors, and they will be sorted into reusable or recyclable categories. And they will also collect marine debris in that same area while they are out there at the Jean P. National Historic Park. The second project is the Rougarou Best Folklore Village. This is proposed by the South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center for $34,800. The Folklife Village will be a designated area on the 2025 Rougarou Festival grounds where visitors and locals can experience and engage with various aspects of traditional cultural heritage and folklore. It will feature demonstrations, performances, and exhibits showcasing traditional crafts, music, dance, storytelling, cuisine, and other cultural practices unique to the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary. The third one is Wet Shop. This is proposed by Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation for $20,000. Wet Shop is a week-long coastal awareness teacher training with an intent of educating approximately 40,000 Louisiana students on the values, issues, and history of Louisiana's coastal ecosystems through the training of Louisiana teachers on wetland issues. Does anyone have any questions?
Or, real quick question. Okay, real question.
Yeah, Pat Gordon, South Central Planning, and since the Water Life Center is only 2 blocks away from my house, I was just wondering if Jonathan had an update on when it would be complete, the entire center. Certainly a huge enhancement to the governmental campus along Civic Center Boulevard, but I'd like to know when it would be complete. Thank you.
A great question, Jonathan.
I have such envy driving onto campus, seeing the coastal center being built and so beautiful.
It is.
It has been a very difficult process for us.
Sorry.
It's been a very difficult process for us to secure what, when we started, would have been $8 million, and now is most likely $20 million for the facility that we're doing. So we're sort of shifting gears a bit, and we are currently housed at the Waterlife Museum, the Barataria-Terrebonne Waterlife Museum in downtown Houma. And so we're using that facility as a base of operations and getting people to utilize that facility more than it is updating the exhibit, because it's sort of a museum of a museum. We had a museum consultant come in and she said, well, you have a lot of artifacts here, which is a good thing because, 10 years ago, we went away from artifacts and did a lot of touch screen, but now we're going back to artifacts. So you're right where you need to be, but we need to update the materials there. The last hurricane we talked about was Andrew, right? So our goals are going to be to do some fundraising to be able to update the exhibits at the Waterlife Museum, making it a little bit more relevant. And then using the site next to the Courtyard Marriott as an outdoor event center and an outdoor education center. So we're not going to build the massive building that we hope to build, because the reality of it is the maintenance and insurance of all of that would probably be more than our nonprofit could handle. So we're trying to be a little bit smarter about how we build out that space. If that answers your question. So we're still utilizing the space. But more of an outdoor education space. We did the clinic, Sarah, help me out. The aquatic clinic for all fifth graders at the property this year, in Terrebonne Parish. So we're still utilizing the space, but we're just not paying for the air conditioning of the huge building.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate you being here so that you can explain the progress of the wetland stuff. So thank you.
Any other questions for anybody? Yeah, Susan?
How many teachers are you expecting in the workshop?
I think it's usually around 14, 15.
Any more?
It's very competitive, so a lot more teachers I think do apply, but they only have the capacity for around 15 teachers.
Emily, do you know how many of those nutrient excluder devices that they're going to remove? Is it like hundreds or thousands?
Yeah, so it's up to 7,000. They're gonna go out, they're gonna go scout and see how many they have that they can pick up, what's easily acceptable, and then come back, but they're thinking up to 7,000.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, I think Michael Massey will be up next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Massey, Chair of the Invasive Species Action Plan team, which is got plenty of people on it, lots of experts, wonderful people, a good group, so much expertise, and I love meeting with them. And fortunately, we were able to fund 2 projects through Section 320, and another one through DIL that we'll get into later. The 2 projects I'm going to talk about right now. Cynthia Fiber for biodegradable plant pots. So this is a very interesting project. You may recall I spoke about it at the last management conference meeting, and we had a presentation by the CEO of Cynthia LLC. And their group is here today. So if anyone has any additional questions when I'm done, they should be able to answer. But the long and short of it is, this is a cutting edge technology where they're going to be harvesting water hyacinths from waterways in the Terrebonne, collecting it, drying it, and using it for value-added products. Basically, it's rich in cellulose, so they're going to create cellulosic fiber that is dried and sterilized and then used for biodegradable plant pots.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
So here are a couple of prototypes of the products that they'll be creating. And this money from BTNEP will go to support a research project to determine the thickness, size, water capacity, basically its conditions for the nursery industry to optimize this product for use in the industry. And the idea is that we'll be removing water hyacinths from the waterways, but we'll also be providing an alternative to plastic plant pots with a biodegradable alternative. And the next project is making feed treatment in the forest and wetland. This is with Woodlands Conservancy and Katie Bracestead, who we've worked with many times in the past. This is a fantastic facility, tens of thousands of visitors per year, outdoor education workshops, public visitation, and it's very well managed. Katie is an excellent steward of the land there, and her goal is to remove every single invasive species from the 650 acres of the Woodlands Conservancy. This money is going to support that. And recently, they became stewards of another tract of land, the Delacroix Preserve, and their experience there shows that with 2 or 3 years of blanketed treatment, you get such a good level of control over the invasive trees that you can move to more spot treatment, much less intensive and less expensive program. So that's the goal for the 650 acres of the Woodlands Conservancy. This money will be partnered with other funding she's getting from federal agencies and private sources to do a blanket treatment of the entire 650 acres. The main problems there are, well, the usual suspects, Chinese privet, China berry, cat claw has recently been identified on the property, and Chinese talon. Any questions? Any questions?
So do they describe some of the techniques that they use to eradicate or remove the invasive species, i.e. Chinese privet, tallow, so forth?
Yes, it's mostly a hack and squirt method, and then physical removal of the larger trees. And then once the larger trees, those are your seed producers, once those are all removed, you go in and handful weeds basically. So she's going to be hiring a forest management team, excuse me, to go in and do that. Any other questions? Thank you all. Thank you. All right, Mr. Barrett's up next.
Okay, so I was the team leader for the water quality action plan team. And we had only one project that will be funded as part of the 320 work plan. And that project is mapping hypoxic zones in Barataria Bay from 2001 to 2020. And so the funding request it's right at $50,000. And the performing organization is Louisiana State University. And so actually there's been a lot of interest recently with regard to hypoxia in inshore areas, especially in Barataria Bay. So there were, trying to remember, I think it was January of 2022, there was an event, a hypoxic event. You would think that's kind of a weird time of year, you know, in January, but it was related to a funnel system that pushed through and re-suspended a bunch of bottom sediments and stuff like that. And it caused low oxygen event, and it seemed to be associated with some moisture die-off as well. And so there was interest in a previous project that we worked on, which was Harpwell Bloom Index. And then this project is going to be doing modeling, looking at these inshore areas and the relationship between some of the constituents, like nitrogen, phosphorus, silicon, and iron in the water column. and then modeling it for these years and looking at the relationship to some of the indicators for hypoxia and heart valve awards. Are there any questions about this, this particular project? Okay, so if there aren't any questions, Michael, I think is going to come back up, and we have one more project that we're going to talk about.
So this one did not come out of the action plan team. This is just an example of occasionally the staff has to do a project based on demand from EPA, but similar to our pilot drop calendar that we do each year. So the staff has the prerogative to put a project into the work plan, even if it didn't come out of the action plan team process. The indicator report is a document that's kind of like a state of the estuary document. We just recently completed an indicator report with data going up to about 2021 or so. This funding is going to support the next effort. EPA likes it when, estuary programs put out regular updates of these indicators. So indicators like fisheries, how are oysters doing, how are crawfish and crabs, but also socioeconomic indicators, insurance claims. There's lots of stuff to cover. It's a very wide ranging document. The one that we just completed should be available for viewing pretty soon. This one will probably go through 2025, update that whole process. I think we'll be moving on to BIL here because of Andrew.
Yeah, there's a question.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
On the,
Question was, have we picked the contractor yet? No, we have not.
We have another question.
So, as management conference, we're just approving the work plan. But I was looking at the inside cover of the report. First of all, the report's excellent. I love the format, great guy, great job, people. This is really good. But on the first inside cover, there is the overall budget workup. And I guess my question is, if we're currently being asked just to approve the work plan part of this, or is it the overall budget that the management conference is? And then if so, there's most of these things are self-explanatory, there's a couple items on there that I just don't know what they are. So
I believe it is the budget. And do you have any specific questions about the budget?
but this is the indirect. What is indirect?
So the question is about the indirect costs. That's where I would go down.
So, it takes a lot of work, as you know, to administer all of the grants and contracts. So, the arrangement that, Longcon has with the state partner for handling all of fiscal is the, actually the federal de minimis rate, which is 10% of that work. As opposed to, our regular indirect rate is 43%, but we actually only take the 10% de minimis rate. And there are some exclusions, it's just the reason why it comes out to things that don't count towards the 10%. So that's the reason why it ends up at 62 and change as opposed to 80, well, it'd be a little less than that because it's 10% of the direct. So it's not quite.
I just wasn't the terminology.
Yeah, it's completely understandable because it's a very weird term. It's fully spelled out as indirect cost recovery. That's the federal terminology for what that is.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? We will be discussing this group, the section 320 funding and voting on it, and then we'll be discussing and voting on the BIL funding and then voting on that. But first, we want to get through the BIL projects. Okay.
Hi, everyone. So, the section of the work plan that we just talked about was the 320 work plan. And so we went through all the projects that were included in the 320 work plan. Keep in mind, when we went to our action plan teams, we asked them to rank projects that were gonna be included in two separate work plans. One was for 320 funding and one for BIL funding. And the reason we have them separated into these two different funding sources is because there are different requirements that come along with each of those funding sources. So you can see how we would have to ask our action plan teams to rank and come up with two different ranking lists for projects within these two different funding sources. So now we're going to turn to our BIL work plan, our proposed BIL work plan. And so the first project that's listed there is water quality monitoring and a home sewage assistance program in the upper Barataria-Terrebonne watershed. So that project is one of two projects. That's the first two projects that came through the water quality action plan team. Sorry about that. I didn't change my slide. All right, so there are our two water quality projects. So yeah, so this continuing along with the first project. So the proposed cost of that project is $238,000, $238,425 there. So we've done a lot of this type of work already in the Bayou Falls and Bayou Lafourche watersheds. And this project will be where we reimburse homeowners for fixing their homes, fixing their individual home sewer systems. So it's become a pretty popular project, and we've been working with South Central Planning and Development Commission on doing this work, and we've worked out a pretty good system on how to go about doing this, working with the homeowners. It takes quite a bit of work on their part, you know, because they have to work out contracts with individual homeowners and everything. But it does good work. And in this particular project, with BIL funds, they specifically want us to target disadvantaged communities. And so that's where we're going to be targeting for this particular project. All right, so moving along to the second project. I'm sorry, were there any questions on this first project before I move along? Yes, John.
How much do y'all reimburse the homeowners?
Well, for the past projects, we would reimburse them up to $4,000. So that's up to, so it depends, you know, it depends on the work that they need done. So we do an initial inspection and we determine the list of problems. If they just need a pump out and the pump out costs maybe $800 or something like that, well, then they're only going to be reimbursed for work for $800. But if they have an outdated cesspool, and you'd be amazed how many cesspool systems are still out there, you know, they choose to replace their whole system. We may not even cover the whole cost of that, but we can reimburse them up to a maximum of $4,000.
So 100% up to 4,000.
Well, no, so we'll pay them again, for this particular project, we may have a different payment schedule or reimbursement schedule, I should say. But for the current process we're using, we were paying people, we were paying 100% of the first $1,000 of the cost. And then between $1,000 and up to a maximum of $4,000, we pay 50% of those costs. So it would be some sort of payment reimbursement method similar to that. Okay, thank you. Any other questions about the home sewage assistance project? Okay. So the second project that is under water quality for the BIL work plan is evaluation of long-term impacts of stormwater diversion on water quality and wetlands. And the funding request is $74,324. And the performing organization is Comate Resources. So I have two members of Comate Resources here today. So just to give you all a brief background on this, in our work plan, under one of our action plans, which is EM 12. So that is redirection it's actually called stormwater management. And one of the projects that's specifically listed in there is redirection of stormwater pumps. Okay, so stormwater pump outfalls. Louisiana, back when they did the survey of stormwater pumps at the beginning of the program, there were over 256 different stormwater pumps. And those are related to both hurricane protection levees, flood protection levees. And so when you get down near the coast, a lot of those stormwater pump outfalls, they go directly into canals. And where do those canals go? They go straight out into oyster growing areas, fisheries growing areas. So there was a great idea. I mean, this was part of the genius of the folks who wrote the original CTMP. It was to block off those canals and force that water into the adjacent wetlands. Okay, so that did two things. It increased the amount of time for the stormwater to work its way out into the oyster growing areas. Okay, that was one thing. The other thing it did is it would help to enhance the wetlands that were there adjacent to the levees. And so that added to helping to bolster and protect wetlands. Because if you have healthy wetlands for your levee system, then you're going to help to protect the levee system. So we did work down in Cornishin with Comate Resources back then, and looked at a stormwater redirection project back then. And then now we're going back, and after probably 15 years, and we're going to reevaluate the effects of that project in that area. And that's what this project is doing. So are there any questions about this project? Okay, well then I'll turn it over to the next staff member to talk about that.
We have 4 BIL projects in the Community Engagement Action Plan team. The first one is Journeys to Justice. The performing organization is South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center with a funding request of $65,000. So the South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center will organize public meetings in targeted areas to determine community needs that can be addressed by this program. They will then create a Journeys to Justice pathway, which is a web-based interactive 5-course series that allows youth groups to select the direction of their learning by making key decisions about which environmental problems affect them. So all the youth groups will participate in the same orientation course, and in the following courses, each youth group will participate in a pathway that's uniquely designed for their group based on topics that are most relevant for their area. And then all youth groups will participate in the same final course, which serves as an introduction to the Journeys to Justice Toolkit. Now, the toolkit takes youth on a journey to develop and implement a youth-driven action plan based on their pathway. And these action plans may include community-based monitoring, citizen science, community mapping, or awareness campaigns. The second project is building a Barataria-Terrebonne ecological cultural economy. This is proposed by Louisiana with the funding request of $50,000. So Tell Museum will identify, curate, and promote pre-existing cultural and environmental amenities and experiences within 6 targeted communities in the estuary region. And following an initial assessment period, they will select 2 of the 6 targeted communities to develop new amenities in. So the 6 targeted communities are Pierre Park, Hamilton, Lower Lafourche, New Roads, Grand Bayou, and Vacherie. So the project will create a series of educational and experimental tours within the designated communities to educate both local and international visitors about the unique opportunities and challenges within the Barataria-Terrebonne estuary system. The third project is the Catalyst Catalog. This is by Skull Island Art and Fabrication with a funding request of $48,660. So the Catalyst Catalog is a comprehensive database encompassing various aspects of the Barataria-Terrebonne estuary, and it will capture the sounds and sights of the estuary system. The project will take place over 1 year, composed of 4 3-month excursions to ensure that the estuary system will be documented during all 4 seasons. The catalog will be divided into 4 categories: wildlife, culture, industry, and impact. Each topic will be presented in a narrative format incorporating field recordings, photos, videos, and illustrations. The catalog will then serve as a content source for BTNEP to use across print and digital platforms, such as publications, social media, our website, etc. And the last project is Native Invasive, which is a podcast and radio show highlighting the work of BTNEP. So this is by E. Abrams, and the funding request is $199,962. So the Native Invasive podcast will produce it's a podcast as well as a radio show segments for BTNEP. The stories will originate and be grounded in BTNEP's work with both native and invasive species, and will include interviews with BTNEP employees, volunteers, and partners. The purpose of these stories will be to draw in a diverse listenership by crafting stories embodying the scientific and cultural concepts our human work with these species reveals. So those are the 4 projects for BIL. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. I mean, so they're gonna provide us with a database, and then we're gonna put it out to the public. That's the thing, I guess we'll have to see in our scope of services whether we're gonna, well, so we talked about possibly doing like a blog format where she would post all her findings, or just, yeah, maybe, maybe.
Any other questions for everyone?
I have a question. I wanted to ask about the stormwater erosion plan. Yeah. Cut off from the regular freshwater flow. Maybe it's your going back and looking at.
Ada, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so the question is, what was the purpose of the original project? So this is the second project that I talked about, which is the stormwater diversion or stormwater redirection project. And so the original purpose of that project was to look at a stormwater pumping station at the outfall of that as a miniature diversion, essentially. And again, it's specifically discussed in our action plan, EM 12, within our CCMP, as one of these tasks, one of these actions, one of these projects that we could do to help to do a number of things. So at BTNEP, we try to do things that are going to affect a number of different things, not just focus on one thing. So the nice thing about this project is it does act as a miniature diversion. So it adds fresh water into into an area like Point Shannon, which is ultimately it was ultimately becoming salty at that time. And so it also added nutrients to the wetlands in that area. So it helped to enhance those wetlands. It also delayed the amount of time that, say, the fecal coliform bacteria that's in that stormwater would get out into oyster growing grounds. So all of these stormwater pumping stations, they're taking water out of the insides of the levee systems where you have camp systems, you have individual home sewage systems, and this was a project not only identified by BTNEP, but it was also identified through the Shellfish Challenge that was put together by NOAA as a project that could help to protect shellfish growing areas. So there was a number of different goals there that went together in this one project. I hope that answers the question there.
Is it continued or looking at what has happened over time? Stop.
Yeah, the second thing. So we're looking at what has happened over time in that location in Point Shannon. So what have been the effects over time? And a lot of those effects are going to be related to water quality and the response of the vegetation at the site and how much land, you know, if there's any land that's happened or any channelization through those wetlands that's happened over time. And that's going to help us with looking at the long-term effects of this type of project.
Does that flow more?
No, it's still very much an active stormwater pump there in Point Shannon.
It will look at change in,
Yes, it's going to look at the change in the plants.
before 15 years ago. We didn't have a benchmark.
Yes, it's going to have a benchmark. I mean, we have that information from back then. There was a lot of data that was collected in terms of the type of vegetation that was there, the vegetative density, all of that type of information. We even had water level recorders, and we collected water quality at that site. There were feldspar markers, so there were even SEP tables to record the elevation. So sediment elevation tables. So all of that type of data, we have that data from back then, and then we're going to go back and look at that and look at those same types of parameters again at this site. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we have one more project to discuss. Would be on Monday? Yeah, it's one more. Okay, I think I've been the word for the coolest project title. Identification of critical attractants to improve monitoring of possible biological agents of the emerald ash borer within the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary. So the background on this one is there is an invasive beetle called the emerald ash borer that is wreaking havoc on ash trees throughout central North America. It started around the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, and it's moving its way south. It's now been identified in 4 northern parishes of Louisiana. And I'm surprised it's not getting more national press because it's a real scourge of ash trees, which are, you know, pretty prominent in southern forests. It's a small jewel beetle, bright green, hence the name emerald ash borer, and it's on its way here. So the USDA APHIS has approved 2 classic biocontrol agents for this beetle. There are 2 very tiny parasitoid wasps that attack the beetle and prevent it from being so harmful on the ash trees. So these are approved and have been released in other states. I believe there's also been some releases in Louisiana.
But this project intends to optimize the use of this biocontrol agent, these two biocontrol agents, these parasitoid wasps. Basically, when you release them, they are looking for ash trees. They're not necessarily looking for their hosts, the emerald ash borer. They're looking just for ash trees in general. Then when they find the ash trees in general, then they can hone in on which ones are infected with the beetle, and then go parasitize the beetle. So what this project aims to do is determine that first level of search. When you first release the wasps, how are they finding the ash trees? What are they being attracted to? So this is Dr. Todd Johnson from LSU Ag Center and plans to use gas chromatograph and electroantenographic detection. Which basically means they'll be identifying specific compounds in the leaves of green ash and pumpkin ash trees that elicit the best response from the antenna of the parasitoid wasps. So it's a very technical project, really, really cool cutting edge stuff. And the idea is that once you identify those compounds, you can then utilize them as an attractant to move the wasps to the area you need them to go to have a push and pull for these biocontrol agents. Hopefully there's no serious follow-up questions because a lot of this is over my head. Any questions about that project? Susan? Okay, good. Well, no, this work is mostly going to be done in the lab. So he's going to be taking leaves of ash trees and bringing them back to the lab. And he's going to get his hands on some of the wasps, bring them back to the lab, and then he's going to crush up the leaves, identify the compounds that elicit the best response. And then the idea is later we would mobilize that into the field to actually do work. No, this project will just be paying for the lab work to identify the compounds. Yes. This is Dr. Todd Johnson from LSU Ag Center. Is Todd here today? Hey Todd, how you doing? Did I do it justice? Okay. Any questions? Good to see you, Todd. Thanks for coming. Thank you all. Okay, I think that's it for the projects that we've had to hear about. So we're gonna go back now and we'll open up for discussion the projects that were presented for the Section 320 funding. That was the first group of projects. Does anybody have any comments?
About a question.
Okay, with a question.
So we're being asked to approve, what is it, 10 projects here? I'm curious as to how many proposals were submitted.
So the question is that we're here to approve 10 different projects for the Section 320 funding. The question is how many total projects were submitted? Somebody have the answer?
For VIL, there were approximately 24 projects total that was.
Thanks.
Were they doing distributed between 320 and VIL?
Yeah, yes, that was the total combined, and then they were broken into, basically, they were asked when they submitted the projects to submit them for either VIL or for Section 320. We put that burden on the submitted.
So asked another way, was there more than 10 applicants for the first round we're talking about now?
Yes, they were.
Yes, there were proposals that were submitted that were not funded,
Oh, thanks.
yes, but
70% work.
70% were.
At 13 for 320 and 12 for VIL.
Okay, so 13 proposals for 320, and out of those 10 are going to be funded. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so again, this is our big job as a management conference is to approve this budget that they are proposing to us. And so think about it, and if somebody would like to make a motion to accept this proposed budget, let me know. Nobody wants to make it?
We're gonna do one at a time?
We're gonna do one at a time. Yeah, this is strictly just for the 320 funding.
I make a motion.
Yeah. All right, so Dwayne got a first, Mark's got a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, we have consent. Thank you. All right, now we're going to discuss the VIL funding. Those projects that we just heard about,
Now I'd like to open up the floor for discussion, comments, questions. Any questions or comments? Okay, anybody like to make a motion? Oh, hold
I'm gonna make a motion to approve this and the projects included with. But I think there still needs to be a finalization to make sure that the budget is completely correct. Because my calculations of the indirect does not match this. So I think the projects, in terms of making a motion to approve the budget with the projects included, what I'm comfortable with right now.
on. Okay, so the motion on the floor right now is that we will vote to accept the projects as established on here with the understanding that the final budget may be amended because of the indirect costs. Okay. Mark seconds it. Any discussion on this?
Well, how will we find out about the modification?
Will we send out the final budget?
It's enough, we can
Yeah,
get it.
we can send out the final.
Send out the final budget.
Okay, like everything is signed to. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, we have consensus. Thank you all very much. All right, so we're now done with our annual budget plan. And we're gonna move on now to our presentations. So our first presenter is Dr. Chris Baldwin. He's a professor here, an associate professor at Nicholls State University. He's also the director of University Graduate Studies, so he's very involved in our graduate program work. But most importantly, he's a crawfish biologist. So we thought it'd be appropriate today that it's our annual crawfish ball to learn about some of the work that's being done in our estuary dealing with red swamp crawfish. All right, Chris?
Thanks, Quinn. Yeah, when Delaney asked me to come give a talk about this, was a great time to come do the crawfish. So I'll talk to try not to keep you too long, maybe just prime it up for your talk. This is a big debt funded project we worked on. It's a 2-year project. So I'm going to present some of our 2023 data. We just took the field about a month ago. It's like our 2024 data. But I want to shout out to Rob Badmore, because I'm up here talking about getting credit cards. Rob is the grassroots to work with this project. He's the one who is in the field, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and everything else. So I just want to give Rob his view. But what we want to do was we wanted to look at how the lack of flood pulse in the upper Barataria estuary affects crawfish production. We know we have less crawfish there. And before we get to that, just talking about water for floodplain. We know they're important for all things you see listed up here. They're important for biodiversity, ecosystem functions, but that last 3 is kind of what we want to kind of touch on this project. Of course, ecosystem services are talking about crawfish production. We want to see why we're not getting a lot of that crawfish production in the Barataria estuary like we see in the Chapala Basin. We know it affects water quality, and you might say, where's water quality with crawfish? And that's kind of a big background what our research lab focuses on. So I'll show you a little bit about that. And of course, the flood pulse, that's the big thing. That's what we don't get in that Barataria estuary, that river-induced flood pulse that we get in the Chapala Basin. So that being said, here's the 2 basins we're talking about, the Chapala and the Barataria Basin. At one time, they received a similar historical flood pulse. They both got flood waters in the Mississippi River. The Chapala Basin still gets that. It's a reduced floodplain, but they still get that flood pulse in the Mississippi River, whereas the Barataria estuary, we don't get that anymore. Our levee system, we've kind of removed that natural flood pulse. So even though these wonderful floodplains are about 25 kilometers apart, the closest, hydrologically, they're very different. And this graph right here is just showing what we see in the Chapala Basin. This is the flood pulse in the Chapala River, here rows, and each line represents an individual year. That red line is the average. So of course, we have a lot of variation in flood pulse from year to year, but the important thing to take away from this is that we see that we typically in a Chapala Basin, we get that high water in the spring, low water in the fall. And the reason why this is important to crawfish, because this ties to crawfish life cycles. Same thing we see in the ponds, right? Ponds, what do? They flood the ponds, they flood down those ponds. So it's the same concept we see in river floodplains. The flood pulse comes up and goes down. That's what's an important driver for crawfish. So we know in the spring, when that water comes up, what's going to happen is that those crawfish, they're in the burrows, they're going to come out the burrows. The females have hatched their eggs, they're holding them to those young. When they come out of the burrows, they're going to release those young to the water. Also, in the floodplain, that's where we're gonna bait too. So if you're not sure, that bottom picture, that's crawfish sex. If you take it right, you got to see a picture of crawfish sex today. But that's what they're doing too. On the floodplain, they're mating. The females can store that sperm. Then when that water comes down, that's when those females are gonna go to burrows. That's actually going to fertilize the eggs. Those young are gonna actually hatch in those burrows. Then again, the following year, when the water comes up, that's when they're gonna release those young. So that's why that flood pulse is so important. Again, this is when we get in the Chapala Basin, in the Barataria, we don't have that reliable riverine flood pulse anymore. And this is why the Chapala Basin produces 90% of our wild crawfish harvest because of that annual riverine flood pulse. So like I said, the purpose of this project is we wanted to compare some population and some custody characteristics of red swamp crawfish between the Chapala Basin, which gets that riverine flood pulse, and the Barataria Basin, which doesn't get that riverine flood pulse. The only time water is going to get in the floodplain is kind of precipitation driven. So we could get water in November, December when it's not conducive for crawfish production, or we could not get water in the spring when we need it. So that being said, we focus our segment period when the Chapala Basin receives its water. So this is looking at 2023, and the amount of water you need at the Chapala River Rose to start harvesting crawfish, it changes depending on where you are in the basin. It kind of goes from 2.8, but for the site we sample the basin, we kind of need 4 meters of water. That's kind of what we get both on the to our sample sites. So that's what we looked at right here. So that line is 4 meters. So that Chapala River level is kind of get 4 meters. That's when we can start sampling our Chapala. Here's what we look like in the Barataria Basin, and it's right on the front of that 0.2 meters that Bayou Cinnamon is when we get water in the floodplain. So you kind of see, actually 2023 was not a bad year. If you look at that, you kind of see that we did get a lot of water during the spring on the floodplain, so it worked out really well, but it's not always like that. But the takeaway from this graph is that in the Chapala, right, you see that natural spring that go down, whereas the Barataria, you see that kind of chaotic, but then all precipitation driven. But one key point I want you to take away from this, if you look before we started, oh, by the way, there's not a period we sampled. But if you kind of look before we started sampling, you see that the water was in the floodplains. We got a lot of rain in January, so we had water on there. So kind of keep that in mind, but that's going to tie into something I'll kind of present later on. So really quick, what we have in the Chapala Basin, we have 14 sample sites. This is kind of a range of all types of sites. We have normal sites that are not too far from the coast. They get a lot of oxygenated water. We have chronically hypoxic sites. We have sites that have a bunch of water hyacinths, some that don't. In other words, we're trying to capture all the kind of habitat characteristics we have in the basin. We're not just picking good water sites as kind of a range of habitats. In the Barataria Basin, same type of thing. We have 12 sites in the Barataria Basin, and again, we're trying to capture all these different habitat types, not just one we don't produce crawfish. We're trying to catch kind of all the different habitat qualities. So we go out there, it's a 2-day process. First day, we're out there, we're measuring water quality at all the sample sites, and we're kind of baiting those crawfish traps. We let them fish for 24 hours. And what I didn't mention is, it's kind of every week. So 1 week we're sampling Chapala, next week we're sampling Barataria. We kind of alternate our weeks we sample. Then the second day, we roll those crawfish traps. We're just kind of getting some basic information. We're getting identified down species, which for the most part, it's going to be red swamp crawfish, which you're going to eat later on today. We're looking at the reproductive form. That's the male. That tells us a lot. I'm going to present some of that data to you also. We look at the sex, male, female, of course, the carapace length, the size of the crawfish. Something else we do too is that we brought back females to the lab. So we brought back a maximum of 50 females from every site, from every sample bee. Now, some sites we might get that. Some sites we might only got 2 females, but we maxed it out at 50, which I think Rob's probably grateful that we maxed out because it's been aggravated. Because what we're doing is we're going back to the lab and we're opening up these females. We can look at the gonad maturation. We look at the stages. It's got stages 0 through 4, and that's based on the size of the egg and the color of the egg. Meaning 0, 1, that's immature females, 2, 3, and 4, that's sexually mature females. Those stage 4 eggs, she's about to fertilize those eggs and extrude them onto her abdomen. So we look at the maturation rate, but also with this too, the part that that Rob, I think, part of the project, he's like, he actually counted these eggs. We wanted to see if there's a difference in the oocyte. So that's the part Rob did like, kind of those eggs, and I'll present that. But two things we want to look at, and I want to explain kind of why we broke this down. Some stuff we broke down just comparing the Chapalaria to Barataria, but we had some chronically hypoxic sites in the Chapala Basin, meaning some of our dissolved oxygen got really low and stayed like that for weeks at a time. So I wanted to compare the Barataria to our Chapala Basin normoxic and our Chapala Basin hypoxic. So you're going to see kind of comparing it that way. But two big water quality variables when we look at that crawfish are temperature and dissolved oxygen. So big thing to take away from this graph is we see with temperature, we see there's no difference in temperature between kind of our three groups. And that's good, because if you had one that's significantly higher temperature, you can be like, well, those crawfish might have grown more at warmer temperature. So this is good. We don't want to see this in temperature, meaning temperature is not influencing some of the differences we see. However, here's the big one to look at. We see dissolved oxygen, and we see different letters. Different letters mean a significant difference. So we saw that we had significantly higher dissolved oxygen in the Chapala Basin in the normoxic sites. But the big takeaway is if you look at the Barataria and the airly hypoxic, it was a little bit different, but they weren't significantly different. So it's kind of indicating that things aren't hypoxic bad in Barataria, but we do have a little bit overall, a little bit lower oxygen in a lot of our sites in the Barataria. Just kind of keep that in mind. And just kind of going through this, the first one, CPUE is catch unit effort. One way of looking at that is how much crawfish we average per trap. So within the little asterisk means we had a significant difference. So we caught significantly more crawfish per trap than Chapala and the Barataria. What that's kind of showing you is, in other words, we kind of average 10 crawfish per trap in Chapala. With the Barataria, we're only going to be averaging 2 crawfish per trap. And again, when we break that down to our groups, same type of thing. Look at this. We see that the Barataria Basin, we even caught significantly less crawfish, when we're even catching in these severely hypoxic areas in the Chapala Basin. So we've been catching less than what we consider the bad areas in the Chapala Basin. Something else to look at is the carelessness, the size of the crawfish, and again, overall, we're getting larger individuals in the Chapala Basin, the Barataria, and again, looking at the size of our crawfish in the Barataria was even smaller than crawfish we were getting in the Chapala hypoxic areas. Keep in mind, remember I showed you that the Barataria that were working up in January. So technically, these crawfish have been up their burrows, eating and foraging longer than the Chapala crawfish. Even though they were kind of on the floodplain more than the Chapala crawfish, they're still smaller. So kind of the indications of things going on right there. Then two things we looked at are the Form 1 males and the oocytes, the number of eggs inside the females. The Form 1 male, that's when crawfish kind of reach a sexual maturity, and that's a way you kind of, it's a biomarker of stress. Because if they mature at a smaller size, that shows they were stressed, right? Because crawfish grow by molting, so every time they molt, they're growing a little bit. So what this is showing is that our Form 1 males were significantly larger in the Chapala and the Barataria. Again, it's just more data just kind of showing that we're seeing the stress, we're seeing individuals mature at smaller sizes in the Barataria. And the oocytes, it's we call it oocytes, it's not really eggs from the outside, but this is kind of the eggs that are inside. But same type of thing, we saw that our crawfish in the Chapala had significantly more oocytes compared to our Barataria crawfish. And again, our Chapala crawfish, that's also taken into account because we've got the hypoxic site for the Chapala Basin as well too. So again, we're seeing the Chapala, the females are producing more eggs, more oocytes compared to our Barataria individuals. And last thing we looked at is the maturation index. And basically, this was just looking at how many crawfish were in each of those 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 pictures I showed you earlier of the eggs. So this one, you might look at it, oh, look, Barataria, they have a higher maturation stage. But all this is showing is this is because those Barataria crawfish, remember I showed you the flood pulse? They were on the floodplain earlier, so they kind of got a jump start on their life cycle a little bit. So it wasn't surprising that we see that the females were, I guess, more state of maturity than we saw. But it's kind of reiterating what I'm talking about. So even though they were kind of on the floodplain earlier, we still saw smaller individuals, we saw small Form 1 males in the Barataria. And finally, one of the cool things that it kind of wasn't part of the grant that we're working on too, So, like I said, Rob gets these crawfish, you need to count all the eggs. Some of these crawfish, we've had a couple that have had over 800 eggs inside them, right? That's looking through a microscope counting, so you can see how it's a very time-consuming process. So what they're working on for future research is, it's really time consuming. So what Rob is doing is, he's taking out all the oversight, and he's getting a weight on just 25% of the gonad and counting the eggs on that, and comparing it, and we're starting to get a really good comparison. So hopefully we'll add all the 2024 stuff there too. But basically what we're doing is in the future, instead of having to count all the eggs, we can just kind of take 25% of the weight, count that, and we're gonna extrapolate how many eggs they got. So hopefully this is kind of a tool we can use in the future to people monitor crawfish population. But this is important for a couple of reasons. One, we know that what's the effect? We've done a lot of research. I know at Nichols Point, Release has done a lot of research on that fish spawning out in the flood halls. We're showing that not having that ripping flood halls, how can affect crawfish production in the Barataria Basin. We know it's important kind of influence on water quality as well. Yes, we have hypoxic sites in Chapala Basin, but that flood halls does a lot to influence water quality as well. And there's always talk about future Mississippi River reintroductions, and you know this could be a positive. That storing this riverine flood pulse can definitely have positive influences on crawfish in the Barataria Basin. And of course, just want to shout out to JD and Cody, our another graduate undergrad who's helped count a lot of eggs for this project. And any questions? I'll take any questions. Or if you don't have a question now, you can talk to me during the crawfish while I'll talk to you about crawfish all day.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Interested in studying like in the sort of places on where we're putting in a lot of fresh water and public farming. Is that part of the area that you're looking at, or is that not?
No, yeah, we could. I mean, I'll brush anywhere, it doesn't matter anywhere, but no, this was, we're all kind of, an area kind of like, yeah, like behind Shack Bay Bass Ring, that, the swamps behind there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for Chris?
Really, no crawfish questions?
All right, thank you. All right, can I invite Mr. Mike Massey to come up and introduce our next speaker, please? Yes, thanks. So I'm very happy to introduce the group of folks from the international corporation now, I suppose, that is starting this water hyacinth project that I mentioned earlier. I believe if you attended the last management conference meeting, you saw them on the Zoom screen, and now they're here in person. So I also want to make sure that I get your last name pronounced exactly right, because I'm someone whose last name is somewhat difficult to pronounce. Billy Hussein, yes, Rebecca Bahadrani, did I get it? And Richard Pomeroy stepped away for a moment. They are with Cynthia LLC, partly in Belgium, partly in Lafayette, and now soon to be in Gibson with a facility they plan to inaugurate this month. So, Billy, thank you. So.
Good morning, everyone. Bon matin. I'm from Lafayette, but I'm not a native of Lafayette, as you probably can hear. Came from Belgium in 1974, a long time ago. Married a Cajun girl, and now I have children who are working in Louisiana and grandchildren who hopefully will be soon working in Louisiana as well. 2 years ago, I received a call from the Trade Commissioner of Belgium based in Houston. Louisiana is part of his territory. And he told me he had 2 visitors in his office who were looking for water hyacinth. I didn't know much about it, but I knew we had quite a bit of water lilies in Louisiana. So I was able to convince them to drive from Houston to Louisiana, and with the help of wildlife and fisheries, we showed a lot of sites in South Louisiana and eventually selected one, and Rebecca will be telling you more about that site located in Gibson in a minute. So They had a company in Belgium called In Between International. They've been doing research on this project for over 10 years. They asked me to incorporate a business in Louisiana. We showed the name of the patented name of the fiber called Cynthia. So the name of the company, the Louisiana-based company, is Cynthia Louisiana LLC. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the person who is really behind the whole project, Rebecca. Richard is the scientific brain behind it, so if you have scientific questions, don't ask me, ask Richard. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the management conference. Thank you. Oh, sorry. So thank you for welcoming us here. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk to you about our project Cynthia. I guess we are all familiar with this. Sorry, we all live together, we know what it means, and we are not alone. It's everywhere in the world. The fact is that all of us are involved in this project, actually. There is a great effort on behalf of Louisiana, and a great effort on behalf of almost half of the globe, because we all have this problem. So we decided at In Between International to think different, do the right kind of effort, to use the enemy rather than to fight the lost war, because it's impossible to get rid. So we created a natural renewable fiber that we call Cynthia, as it was named. So by using the water hyacinth and repurposing it, we clean up waterways without using pesticides or herbicides or chemicals. And for a few reasons, actually. The first one is that they are not that efficient. Water hyacinth becomes up. And also, they are very expensive. It's a financial burden, and they are a nuisance on their own. So that's not really a success. What we do is that we free waterways by corroding the water hyacinth and collecting it. So we first let the oxygen get back into the water and have an impact on the ecological equilibrium of the waterways before we collect as much as we can, because actually that is the big issue, is the quantities of water hyacinth out there. So repurposing the water hyacinth and creating the natural fiber Cynthia allows a self-management of these waterways. This means that now all the officials have to put the money each year out there, go out spraying and put chemicals in the waterways. Once we have our activity up and running, it will pay for itself. And in addition of that, of course, we will be producing from this fiber some materials that have a second impact. They are biodegradable, they can replace single plastics, and they can replace mining products such as clay, which is heavy, which is not biodegradable, not renewable. And so this formidable natural resource, once it's turned into an alive, actually has a lot to offer. It is renewable, sustainable, biodegradable, with a great absorption. So transforming the water hyacinth into a natural fiber offers job opportunities, sustainable development, new market opportunities, because we are actually growing, offering something that is not really on the market, and a long-term prosperity for our future generations. But of course, as all great changes, it takes time. And to walk through this 10th slide, we have started working in 2010. But hopefully things are changing now. We are very, very happy to, say that in fact, this is a great moment for us. We are opening our first ever pilot plant in Gibson, Louisiana. And you are all welcome to see. It's gonna happen next week on Wednesday, 15th at 10:00 a.m. Maybe I can ask Michael if you can give information on. So what is it exactly that we are going to do in this new pilot? The problem, the activity actually that we have is two phases. The first phase is an agricultural part. We have the water hyacinth, and the second part is for industrial. We have fiberized the dry water hyacinth, and then we have to make our material. So the second part actually is the easy part. All the technology is out there on the shelf. We have been working with industrial partners. We know that we can make all these objects. But that's easy and it's not complicated. The pilot, the challenge that we have is the first one. Bring up the water, but in an efficient way, because the amount of water hyacinth out there is so huge that going out and collecting 10 tons a day, we won't have any impact, not on the waterway side, neither on the market side. So our goal is first to master how we can efficiently crawl and collect the water hyacinth. To be able to scale up next year and to go to a industrial level and collect more than 100 tons a day. So once the water hyacinth is out of the water, we have a process of treating the stems, to separate the stems. We cut the stems in small pieces so that the solar drying process will be easier. Yes, we use solar power to dry. This is our DNA. We go with what is available to us, and we have a lot of sun, so we are going for the sun power. We also have some other ideas to replace the sun power in a cloudy day and a rainy day. We would love to meet some sugarcane industries to see how we can together develop a cogeneration and using the bagasse and continue drying when there is no sun out there. Once this is mastered and we know how to really develop the right equipment to be able to gather as much as possible water hyacinth, going up to 200 or 300 tons per day, then we will have to go to the industrial phase. And that normally, hopefully, it's going to be 2025. The plant will look like this. So we will continue gathering the water hyacinth, separating the roots and stems and cutting. And then we go to the solar greenhouses before fiberizing, screening, and shading. And finally making plant pots. So now, why plant pots? Well, we have the market here in Louisiana, nurseries, and all the people in Louisiana so much in love with nature and planting, so it seems like just the right thing to do. And also because the trend is there, so we need to replace the single-use plastics. Now we are finding ourselves treating huge amounts of waste that we cannot recycle. So what they do is it's in a lot of occasions they just grind it and they put it on the fields, so it comes back into our place. Here the idea is to use this fiber coming from Louisiana for Louisiana, and with really technical, great qualities. Because as I was saying, water hyacinth is very absorbent. So this also will help to water less what you are putting in this thing to grow in these pots. And the layer also is going to be much less to do, not only on the
waste management side. But you don't have to depot the first remove plan, go to the video plan, depot, et cetera, and find yourself finally to huge amounts of similar stuff. Here, you can just plant it in a bigger one or in the soil. And here you go. So I just want to thank you very much for listening. I am here to answer all the questions, or I can directly to Richard if they are not.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions? Yes, Gary?
You know, how many water boxes they want?
I'm Richard, yeah. So basically, the density of the plant is about 0.1. So if you are, sorry, it's in kilogram. So if you have, it's 50 grams of I would say fiber. So that means that you need a pound, probably that's 50 grams is 500 grams first, so it's a pound. So you have 1 pound of 45 cents. But it's a 93% of water per pound. So, but that's a challenge to try it as well.
How long would the total shape would last? You know?
Well, today the trials we have done are that's the purpose of the study. So we have different possibilities. The process we have developed enabled us to only, I would say, without only use one, we use 100% of our fiber, and using pressure and temperature with specific conditions, we can make these spots. So that's the first trial. But we know that if we want to increase mechanical properties, if we want to change the size, etc., etc., so we need to find some binders. So we already have a lot of ideas. These binders should be photobiodegradable. And we have also some, in our list, some the bio-based binders. But even if you could use starch for, if it's for capsules, it's okay. But if you have a lot of water, starch at the end of the day will not be okay. So that's the process. That's really the program. We have a process to it's unique. Usually, most cellulosic materials they are processed like paper. So you pulp it with a lot of water. You press, so you have a lot of water to use, and then you dry it, which is also a lot of energy. So we don't want to use this kind of process. No water.
I forgot to say study, I'm 35.
Well, okay.
So we have a question back here.
Yes, absolutely like that idea. I think it's a very, unique approach to solving a problem and providing a solution. And what I'm about to ask you is by no means, encouraging you to do that. It's just a question, with hopes that maybe we can solve this other problem, and that is, with the bagasse. Is it possible to use the bagasse to, produce a similar product? The sugarcane waste?
Yeah, in fact, when we had a look at the different sites with wildlife and fisheries about the invasive species, we were focusing on water horizon because this is the major ones. And wildlife and fisheries help us find the best place where we could, I would say, create waterways like Rebecca said. There are other species on the water, everybody knows that, giant salvinia, weeds, etc. So what we would like to do is focus on these aquatic species. We know that in some, I would say, in some months, there are other species than water hyacinth that are, I would say, there on the water. So we need to study that as well. So how to probably tackle this issue with the other invasive species. For the sugarcane, today our idea is more to have a bioenergy and to have a cogeneration using the bagasse to make steam and put electricity back to the grid when we have a lot of clouds. Probably the next step is probably to engage with, as you say, Rebecca, with the the local people making these agricultural waste, transform them into something that would be useful. But there was a lot of sugar inside, so 6 probably to the equipment. The caramel.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you all very much. All right, next part of our program is a project spotlight of something that our fitness staff are working on, and I'd like to invite, Lena LeBlanc to talk about it.
Again. I also, wanted to, let everyone know that my question earlier, I did look up and read that the Plaquemine, the location is the western part of Plaquemine. And he's going to do a land-based survey first to identify where he would do the actual survey, that he would do, active sampling for, mussels. He's gonna do, visual, land-based surveys to find shelling first before we does the sampling. Just to let you know that, answer that question. Yeah, this is 2 years now. So the first year in 2014, the effort started on Elmwood Island and Grand Island. In 2014, we tested 27 birds, and I made a T-shirt the following year because back then I had more time to do that, and I wanted to do a T-shirt every year, and it never happened. Anyway, we put these Altamira flags on the bird legs, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. In the meantime, I want to tell you a little bit about this bird. There are several subspecies. Only 2 of them occur in North America. So there's the Lupo red knot. This is kind of one of them. You can see Lupo red knot on the left-hand side is going to be on the eastern coast and the central and eastern coast, and then there's the Barataria, which goes to Alaska. This bird does breed in the Arctic, and it is going to be a very like no trees, very cold weather environment. I'm not sure how that's going to change with time. And then this bird, primary winter grounds is going to be in South America. So bird is going to be in like Brazil and Chile. So this researcher from Texas contacted me in 2014, beginning of 2014, and wanted to know, he was interested in finding out his name is David Studies with coastal bed-based estuary programs out of Corpus Christi. And he wanted to know how many red knots were in Louisiana. He wanted me to give him an educated guess. And his interest was assessing migratory connectivity of this bird by assessing population size by banding these birds. So we looked at Elmwood Island and Grand Isle. That's where we ended up meeting. He contacted me and we met there, and we have been working there ever since, almost every year, with exception for the pandemic, the year pandemic. So the first thing we would do is we would find a group of birds that are feeding in the shoreline. When we locate those birds, we set up a cannon net. And we steer, well, David steers, twinkles, he calls it twinkling, he basically gets the birds in a safe range for the net to be deployed, which means that the net will explode and go over the birds safely. You can see the projectile on the top right corner flying out. And then everyone immediately goes and starts extracting these birds. There's someone standing, a couple people standing, they're not just standing doing nothing, they're waiting for birds to be handed off, because immediately birds will be put in holding containers while they wait patiently to be, and safely to be banded. Now, these are two types of bands. There's federal bands, and the bands on the orange thing that, the two that are wrapped around the orange tubing, these are metal federal bands. These are non-digit numbers that are given by the federal agency, USGS, and those are hard to read. If you see those on a bird, you will not be able to read them. If you find a bird, you can report those, but you find a bird that's probably dead, so it's good to report them. But the green flags are something that if you see that bird and you photograph it, or see the spotting scope, you can report it to something called bandedbirds.org, and that gives researchers and information about where that bird's been sighted. So that's really valuable. So this is the bird being banded. Measurements are taken, weight, mass, feathers are collected. This gives DNA to tell us where that bird was, grew that feather. That can be really valuable information. This is a whole team of people, someone writing all the information. It really does take a whole team to do this process. So this is some of the information that is collected when we do the banding. Another question we ended up asking was, you know, where did these birds go when they leave Grand Isle? So we did a number of tracking devices over the years, and you can see that we had some. The first few we tried, and they did have some problems. So the radio telemetry devices, most towers can be, and they have to be maintained with a battery that needs to be charged. Most towers can fall down. And they can register incorrectly. So that tracking device caused problems. And then we had these geolocator light level devices on the left-hand side that started with the red plastic device. There is a little light level device, and those are pretty incredible. The only problem is that you have to recatch the bird. We put 50 devices out on the birds. How many do you think we got back? More than 2. 3. We got to, a researcher from Chile got 3. Now, out of the 2 devices, only 1 device registered. But the 3rd device from Chile was really exceptional because we got this information, which is really, really interesting. So the very cool part is that, I mean, there were several really, really cool things, because this is almost 2 years of data. But at the very bottom, at number 6, is the board of Chile. Right before departs from Chile, it flies 7 days straight to get to Grand Isle. So this bird is pretty remarkable. But again, we still don't know where does it breathe, because the light levels will not record once it gets higher than certain, you know, because it's full light once you get above a certain, you know, once you get above Atlantic, it's, you know, you don't have sunset, you know. So then we went ahead and did the satellite test, which will tell us pinpoint exactly where the bird is. So this is a little more money, but it was well worth it. Because now we know exactly where that bird is nesting. So you can see all of the stopover sites of this bird, up in Canada and along the Great Lakes. So this is, we even have birds that were banded and went to Texas and they came back to Louisiana. We don't know why, but it's pretty interesting to see this, behavior. So now we have, some projects that are wrapping up. We have this, census project that is, wrapping up. It will be finished in July. Basically, it's just getting the data. Essentially, it is using the bird banding data to compare with, the number of banded versus unbanded birds to decipher what the population size is for this species that uses the Grand Isle area and the Chandler area. Now, what we learned is that before they knew that Florida and Texas were substantial for red knots, they didn't know that Louisiana was an equivalent size population. So now that we've done this research, Louisiana is on equal component in terms of the capacity of what it offers for red knots. And not only that, but it is an advantage for red knots in terms of, red tide really hits Florida and really hits Texas and kills those birds, but the red tide does not hit the Chandler Islands. It doesn't get close enough into it's more offshore. So the birds in Louisiana are at an advantage. So this is sort of like the waypoints, pretty much, just the. So this is a picture of all the red knots that were on the Chandler, the picture of one of the surveys. And then another project is just looking at what are the birds eating, and is there enough food for them on the beach? This is a real concern. Are they getting enough food? So this is the project that Nichols Professor Dr. Tina Whitaker worked on with her graduate student, Wyatt Volker, and he actually recorded an interesting sighting on the Chandlers of a red knot feeding on a fish, small fish, which was he's gonna publish that. So that's really something new and interesting. This is from this year, a picture from this year. We had this is last week. I'm coming off from red knot chatting from last week. We aim to catch around 50 to 75 birds a year, and we caught 102. So it was a good year. This is not including same week catches, because sometimes we'll catch the same bird that we've already banded. Of the 102 that were caught, there were 88 were new birds, and then the rest were birds that we have already banded in the past, or birds that we've already caught. The 89 of those birds were adults, and 13 were birds that were born last year. They'll likely be spending the rest of the year in Louisiana, unless they're ours. These birds were easy to catch because they were feasting over this muck. We didn't really know what it was, but I can tell you that when you ran into it or went into it, you sunk into it and it stuck onto you. And that's not sure what this is. We did take samples, but when we looked close into it, it looks like they're very, very small shellfish. Well, we did catch one of the birds on a Monday, and it weighed only 116 grams, which is not good. I even weighed one that was only 102 grams, which was frightening. They feel the bone and keel them. Essentially, when we recaptured that same bird on a Thursday, it weighed 138 grams. So, it gained 22 grams in 3.5 days. So that's like, that's getting something good. So it's like a person putting on about, what, 6 to 8 pounds a day for a week. So that's, whatever it's eating is working. So we're hoping that it's encouraging, and we're, hoping they're gonna get enough of that stuff to help it get to the Arctic in good condition. So, anyway, this project involves so many organizations and people over the years that have come from as far as Mexico and Canada, and as close as Grand Island, like Ms. Jean Landry. So we're not so really lucky to have everyone working on their behalf. So if anyone has any questions, so. Ms. Jean?
Thank you. Recently, Delana gave a shortened version of today's presentation to the town council, and it was accepted and has been talked about since then. And the council were wowed at the numbers and the facts that you gave us. And I thank you for that. My question this morning is, for the last 30 years, Grand Isle has been combing the beach to clean it so that we have a nicer vacation area for people. And the question being, is that affecting the food chain for the red knots? Or is it high enough, the rating, high enough on the beach not to affect them?
It's affecting, I saw the guy, I can't remember his name, but I did stop him because that handful of stuff, he was raking it, and I went and showed it to him, because he didn't realize it was food. However, right after I showed it to him, and he said he would avoid it, I had either a visitor or a resident come up to me and say, "Oh, this new guy, he doesn't do as good of a job as the older guy." And I said, and I let them know. I showed them a picture and told them this is really food, and so I think there's a lot of pressure from people they want that clean beach. They don't want that muck. Is essentially what they call it. And so I've worked, I pretty much, wherever that the food was, I worked to clean up trash. Pieces of, because there's a lot of trash in it. So part of his raking is trying to clean up trash. So I worked on cleaning that up because I could physically do that, because I know that's part of why he's doing it. Because essentially him raking, he basically picks that stuff up and he piles it up to bottom levy. But it is food, and so he's taking food away from birds. And I wonder if it's not affecting the production of the shellfish, mussels and other benthic matters. Because they're taking away stuff that's there, right? Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Luann. All right, I'd like to remind everybody that our next management conference will be on August 8th. It will be here in the volunteer suite, same region over here. We've got our Farm Friday still happening on the first Friday of each month. So if you want to volunteer, come out to the Novus Farm and help out fitting up with their plants, that would be fantastic. We've got some things of other business. I got at least 4 things I want to cover. I know there's only 2 things listed on the list, so be patient. Other crawfish are ready, but get through this. Remind everybody that the title graph counters are here. I mean, we're already in May. If you don't have any counters yet, you better get one because you only have a few months left to use it. So go get that one.
I hope everybody got the email. We're introducing a new way to communicate with our management conference through our estuary updates newsletter. So I'd like to thank Emily Bowman for putting this together. It came together really quick, and one of the things that we want to do here with the management conference is to increase our engagement with the program office. Okay, if there may be a little bit of a disconnect, I think we can do a better job. And not only that, but engaging the entire management conference as a group. And so we want to use this newsletter to keep everybody informed on what each group is doing. So if your organization, your group, your agency has an event that you want the management conference to know about, send that information in by the 25th of each month. We'll compile it into one electronic newsletter and send it out to the management conference. This is a good way for everybody to know what everybody else is doing for those certain kind of events. If you got your cousins coming to visit from out of state, you know, hey, there's a pretty cool River Festival happening, you know, we can put it in there and they can all come down and go see it, those type of things. So please be reminded about that newsletter for any type of estuary related event that we can put in there. Speaking of the management conference, kind of let something slide. There's this a group called CAMO. If you guys know Ed Landgraf, he was a part of that, the Coastal and Marine Operations Pipeline Industry Initiative. They petitioned us a while back to become an official member of the management conference. And we talked about it, and then we said, okay, we'll vote on it next management conference, and we never did. So what I would like to do now is to, if anybody here would like to make a motion to accept Camo in as an official member of the management conference, you can make a motion. Got a motion, got a second? Go ahead, Bourgeois seconds that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, well, we gotta do a management conference. So thank y'all for doing that. And then Brian Roberts wants to say something about the CCNP process.
You've heard a lot about the CCNP. It's obviously what guides the project selection process. Takes a long time to put these things together. We're actually due to be doing that again. So you'll probably be hearing a lot more about that moving forward. I know the staff has already started talking about it and everything else. We're just kind of waiting, and we've talked to EPA about this for the new director to come online, and that's obviously going to be one of the first main tasks is to make sure that that moves forward. But just so you know, it's a really important document that sort of guides the decisions and what projects are being done and what the priorities are within this NEP. And so you're going to hear a lot about that, I think, coming up in the next few months. Just want to make the point. Thanks.
All right, anybody else have any other business they want to bring up to the group? Okay, well, before we close, I want to let you know that the crawfish are ready. We have tables back there, but you don't have to sit at those tables. You can bring your crawfish back to where you are. So all tables, all seats are fair game for eating crawfish. So, I think that's about it. You have a motion to adjourn. Alexis, right there for 1 second.
Second.
And a second over here, and all in favor? All right, along with you.